Hello gamers, welcome to Game Recaps. In this video, I will discuss about the newest survival horror game Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime is a survival horror logical puzzle video game, developed and published by Mob Games. The first chapter was released on Steam for Microsoft Windows on October 12, 2021, and the second chapter is planned to be released in early 2022. Poppy Playtime will follow a survival horror story set in a toy factory that has been abandoned for years. Toys may be synonymous with fun things, but what if we were in an old and abandoned toy factory filled with scary toys and could move on their own as if they had a will of their own? It would be really scary. Okay, I will just discuss the storyline of the game Poppy Playtime Chapter 1. The background of the place in this game is a company called Playtime Co, which is known as the creator of toys with super advanced technology. One of the innovations they have succeeded in creating is a toy that can interact like humans in general.
Like one too.
Hi, my name is Poppy. I love you.
In a VHS tape, we will be shown a man explaining the speciality of one of Playtime Co's toy productions, namely a doll in the form of a little girl named Poppy. The man explained that Poppy is a very intelligent doll and is the first and only doll in the world that can interact with children. After being shown a glimpse of a commercial for Poppy dolls, in the recording, Playtime Co also invites everyone to take a tour around their toy factory and see firsthand how they create these very magic toys. However, 10 years before the Poppy Playtime event started, suddenly almost all of the employees at the toy factory mysteriously disappeared, and since then, Playtime Co was closed and is now a large abandoned building. 10 years after it closed indefinitely, a former Playtime Co employee, as the protagonist, received a package containing a VHS tape, which featured a Poppy Playtime commercial for the Poppy doll and a factory tour, before abruptly cutting to spliced-in footage of graffiti of a poppy flower and a letter that reads, "Everyone thinks the staff disappeared 10 years ago, but we're still here. Find the flower." Realizing that his co-worker may still be alive and need help, the protagonist then visits the abandoned toy factory to find out what happened to the staff. Once there, the protagonist must crack the code at the security door that is a puzzle. And look for clues about the poppy flower, then watch the 6 VHS tapes which I will discuss after discussing the storyline. After that, the protagonist gets a device called a grab pack, which can be used to pick up or pull objects from a distance and also connects electricity from one place to another. Using grab pack, the protagonist manages to open an access door that leads to a room where a large and furry toy, nicknamed Huggy Wuggy, is displayed in the center of the room. Based on the information board listed there, Huggy Wuggy is a toy created by Elliot Ludwig, founder of Playtime Co, that can hug us forever, which in my opinion, sounds scary. When the protagonist was about to open a door, the electric power in the room suddenly went out, forcing the protagonist to restore power in the power room. But the room turned out to be locked, and surprisingly, in Huggy Wuggy's hand there was a key that could open the power room. After successfully turning on the electric power using grab pack and returning to Huggy Wuggy's room, the protagonist found that Huggy Wuggy had disappeared somewhere. Even so, the protagonist still steps forward, opens the door, and retrieves the right hand of grab pack, so that now the protagonist can use the grab pack with both hands, which can give him access to certain places that require 2 buttons to be pressed simultaneously. Exploring the Playtime Co factory further, the protagonist finds himself in the Make a Friend section, where a giant toy making machine resides. A door will only open if a toy is placed in a nearby tube. The protagonist then places the 3 parts of the toy in the machine, creates a whole toy, and places it in the tube, which automatically opens the door leading to the hallway. After entering the passageway, Huggy Wuggy suddenly appeared and moved by himself. With a big smile, Huggy Wuggy chased the protagonist through the narrow vent. After reaching a dead end, the protagonist then pulled down a large box, which immediately broke part of the conveyor belt, causing the protagonist to fall further into a platform, and Huggy Wuggy fell to the bottom of the factory. Shortly after, the protagonist finds a door with a poppy flower graffiti as seen in the VHS tape. Even though there are many warnings not to enter the room and get out of there as far as possible, the protagonist still dares to enter. The room inside looks like a hallway in a house. After going through the long hallway, the protagonist arrives at a room where the Poppy doll is stored in a glass cabinet. Without thinking, the protagonist opens the glass cupboard and accidentally frees Poppy.
You opened my case.
Chapter 1 of the Poppy Playtime game has ended. One thing is for sure, the protagonist's action to free Poppy is a big mistake. However, to find out what happens next and what terrible secrets are stored in Playtime Co, we will have to wait for the next chapters to be released. As I promised earlier, we will now discuss the 6 VHS tapes that appear in the game. We have already seen VHS tape 1, which features a commercial for the Poppy doll at the opening of the plot, where the man in the video is most likely Elliot Ludwig, founder of Playtime Co. Elliot was the first to come up with the idea of creating a toy that interacted like a human, and the Poppy doll is probably his most genius creation. The next VHS tape contains an affirmation from a man named Laith Pierre, who works as Playtime Co.'s head of innovation. Through the recording, Pierre emphasized that Playtime Co. always creates high-quality toys. Not only that, Pierre also prioritizes the safety of the Playtime Company.
Hi, my name is Laith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at the Playtime Co. Toy Factory.
Seen from the room where he worked, which was filled with many monitors, Pierre seemed to be the person responsible for supervising the movements of the employees working in the company. The next VHS tape is just a tutorial on using Grab Pack as I described earlier, so I'll just move on to the next VHS tape. The fourth VHS found in a warehouse contains a conversation between two men, one of whom is named Rich Avery. Rich seemed annoyed and expressed his grievances about his job. This is due to Playtime Co.'s decision to help children in orphanages. But helping orphan children was not the problem that Rich complained about. Rich complained that many boxes containing toys to be sent to the orphanage were abandoned in the warehouse, filling the place and making it difficult for Rich to do his job because there were so many boxes there. Even Rich called the warehouse an uninhabitable place.
I haven't seen a single box in its place since they started flooding the storehouse with orphanage junk.
However, what's interesting about this recording is the reaction of Rich's interlocutor, who sounded wary when they were talking about their work. The man was also heard trying to calm Rich so that his partner wouldn't say anything like that, which might cause trouble for both of them if Pierre or anyone else overheard the conversation. It is possible that Playtime Co. has full oversight of its workers, so they are required to keep their mouths shut and divulge any secrets about the company to others. This allegation is proven when we find a notice board stating that employees are only given to rest for 10 minutes, a rule that is certainly very inhumane. In other words, working within the Playtime Company felt like being in prison. The next VHS tape contained a recorded conversation between a woman named Stella Graber, who was doing a job interview at Playtime Co. In the recording, Stella looks very enthusiastic during a job interview, where the woman reveals that working in a large toy company has been her dream since childhood. But the thing that sounds odd in the recording is when Stella talks about people who have young souls, even though their bodies are aging. What made me wonder was Stella's tone of voice, which sounded strange when she said it.
Your body just gets older and older, and then you die.
As if the woman was obsessed with it. Moreover, the interviewer also said that the conversation had gone off track, indicating that the interviewer also thought that Stella's reason to join Playtime Co. was quite strange.
Alright, I think we're getting a little off track.
The latest VHS tape is one of the most mysterious and also the closest to the truth about the horrific secrets hidden by Playtime Co. In the recording, a man who may be one of the scientists working at Playtime Co. seemed to be conducting a certain experiment for the umpteenth time.
Future experiments will need to be contained and disposed of in a secure location.
And among all those failures, experiment number 1006 was his last experiment, which led to the creation of a terrible killing monster named Wuggy. If we look closely, we can also hear faintly the screams of other people.
Words in the name of science, whether those who are beneath us understand it or not. End of...
Which indicates that while the man was recording his explanation, Wuggy had probably launched an attack and killed anyone who tried to block him. On the other hand, instead of helping those who are trying to stop Wuggy, he saves himself because he has ambitions to continue experiments elsewhere, which is believed to be an advance in science. In the end, it was unknown what happened to the man next, whether he died or managed to survive Wuggy's attack. Well, that's the discussion of the storyline and the VHS tape from the game that I managed to summarize after playing. I believe that Poppy will definitely have a big role in the next chapters, and is the protagonist's decision to free Poppy the right move, or will it bring disaster? Another quite interesting theory is Stella saying about the young soul. residing in the body of an aging person, which is most likely related to the scientists' experiments. In addition, if we pay closer attention, when Huggy Wuggy falls from a height while chasing the protagonist, we can see blood coming out of his body, which gives rise to another theory which says that the scientist might carry out gruesome experiments on workers who are caught. Not only Huggy Wuggy, we can also find blood splattered around the crushed toys, which indicates that it is possible that the workers have somehow been turned into toys. Mob Games also published a terrible video that was used as a teaser for the Poppy Playtime game, which explained the steps we must take to take care of Poppy. The first part of the video looks normal with Poppy's face being sprayed with paint, her shoes polished, and her hair neatly combed. But after that, it looks pretty scary when Poppy's neck is opened and something is taken from it. We can see the reddish mucus on Poppy's body, whether it's paint or maybe blood. At a glance, the words "Let me go" also appear in this video, and after that, a beautiful Poppy doll appears. The sentence "Let me go" that appears really seems terrible and quite disturbing, as if someone's soul is trapped somewhere and begs to be let go, whether that means begging to be released or just being killed because it hurts him so much if he keeps being there. Well, all of that is just a theory from me, which may also be similar with other Poppy Playtime players. If you have certain theories and other opinions about this game, please share them in the comments column. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and always look forward to video game recaps from this channel.